Hello and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
And today we're talking about Stranger Things. So we watched the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things, obviously, when they came out. And I was a big fan. But this season 3, Meg, this brought it to the next level for me. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, even when they had the ads of the Starcourt Mall and everything, I just felt like this extra helping of like excitement and nostalgia. And I feel like nostalgia is such a like hard thing to capture, but somehow Stranger Things does it so well. And this season was so good. And right now, I have to add that I have the little Steve plushie that you gave me, that you brought today. He's in his Scoops Ahoy outfit, and he is our third host today.
So I know podcasting is not a visual medium, but this little Steve plushie, I'm going to post it on Instagram. He's so cute. And it's a Hot Topic exclusive. So you need to get over there. They have a ton of cute Stranger Things things. And Hot Topic, if you want to sponsor this episode, like send us some swag.
Yeah, like you don't need to pay us some money. Just send us like t-shirts and necklaces. We'll be good.
So Stranger Things season 3, it has, like you said, this nostalgia factor that is beyond. Now, I saw a counterpoint to this. Someone saying they're romanticizing the Reagan era. And I'm like, you know what, though? Let me be a child.
Oh, okay, we can't have anything. There's always somebody grumbling. I mean, I know, and I saw some people grumbling about Hopper, and apparently he's supposed to be perfect or something. But for me, and I'm kind of curious for you, I have a couple questions. First, what are little nostalgic things that you see and like warm you? Because for me, it was a JCPenney bag that I saw, and I know that exact bag, and it just brought me back to my childhood so quickly. And also, this whole concept of a mall, I'm curious, since you grew up in a small town and I grew up in bigger cities, for me, like, the mall was everything, and I'm just curious if it was the same for you.
Absolutely, it was the same for me. And so the mall that we would always go to was about 15 minutes from where I lived. Every single store was full. I mean, I'm saying that because now that mall is empty. There's like 2 stores in it that are active, and the rest of it's just abandoned. It's so weird. But yes, every single store get dropped off there on a Saturday. There's a movie theater inside the mall. There's restaurants inside the mall. You see other people walking around the mall. I mean, it was exactly this Starcourt concept. I mean, obviously on a smaller scale than that. But you were born in Edmonton, which has, what, the largest mall on the planet?
It does have the largest mall on the planet. Yeah, so I grew up loving malls, even, when I was a kid and I wasn't so interested in shopping yet. It still was like where I went every weekend. And then when I moved to Minnesota, that was like the first thing I needed to know, was like, what was the mall situation? And, I wasn't thrilled, but I got over it and I liked the mall in Duluth. And then it became like, it's where you go. It's where you feel, for me, it's like where you feel freedom for the first time when you're, 13, 14, and you've got your wallet and you can like actually, and you feel like an adult because you can like go into a store and actually buy something, and your mom's not like lurking around the corner. So I don't know. I think the mall, they did a really good job of capturing that in Stranger Things, of what it sort of the phenomenon of the time, but also what it meant for specifically kids of that age group. And I mean, we get to see Eleven kind of find her freedom at the mall, and I don't know, everything. I loved it, and I felt like this season was a little more cohesive than the last season, and I just felt more emotions when I was watching it. And I don't know, I love Stranger Things, and I haven't even started about Carrie Elwes yet.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm going to answer your other question before we get into our man crushes for this show. But the other thing, nostalgia. Just this whole feel, and it's one of our favorite movies. It reminded me of Dawn of the Dead. Like, I feel like there were some nods to that. Obviously, they were watching Day of the Dead in the movie theater, which was amazing. And then the Back to the Future thing, like all of that made me feel super nostalgic because it was in that time frame. But I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before. My first day of preschool, we all had to go around and say our name and then something about ourselves. when it got to me, I said, my name is Kelly and I love Magnum PI. That was the fact I shared about myself. And my mom was mortified. And like, she was like, why did you say that? And she always like reminded me of it and gave me a hard time about it. But you know why, Meg? Because I've always been a fangirl.
And so of course Hopper is called Magnum PI in this, right? So yes, I don't know. For me, it's just like it brought back all that 80s, and obviously I've always been a fangirl. I was a big, I've already talked about it. When I was in preschool, I was a Matlock groupie, so.
We were so funny. Like, that's so weird.
I know. I feel like our little 4-year-old girls saying that. What's the equivalent now? Like Law and Order, SVU, or something?
Yeah, I can't even think of an equivalent. But yeah, so I love the Magnum PI references. I mean, there's so many things I loved. Okay, but let's get to our man crushes very quickly. This will not be the rest of the episode, I promise. But I have to say, it was, what is Charlie Heaton's character name? Jonathan. Like, you and I were both in love with Jonathan previously, but for this season, all of a sudden, we like said it on the count of 3. We're like, who are you in love with this season? And we both said it. It's Steve.
I think what they did so masterfully, and it is not easy. Again, it's like capturing nostalgia. Like, it's not easy to do those things. And to do it well. And what they did so well with Steve, and obviously in the first season, he very much comes off flat. Not that he wasn't a good actor in the first season, not that he wasn't written well, but you know, he didn't have a lot of time to grow. And then the second season, I think one of my favorite things about it was how it's sort of this 180, and he has this sort of almost paternal aspect to him where he's taking care of the littler kids, and then you're like, oh wow, he's actually not all bad. I actually like him, and but at the same time, I'm certainly not shipping him with Nancy. I'm thinking about Jonathan and Nancy. And then this season is when you get the heart eyes. I got the heart eyes for him, and I don't think I'm alone there. I think that they did such a good job of just bringing it to the next level, and that is the sort of like character arcs and writing that I would like to emulate, because we go through a roller coaster with Steve, and so in a way I feel like I know him better than anyone.
I agree, and I love him so much. I love this dynamic with him and Robin. His coworker at Scoops Ahoy. Like, they're adorable. Her character is amazing and was written so well. And I mean, skipping towards the end of the season, but when they have the truth serum, and like, they're hilarious. Poor Steve got beat up.
Oh, poor Steve. Yeah, no, she is such a great character, and I right away, I think, as a sort of goth girl, not that she's a goth girl, but I definitely gravitated toward her, because I Nancy, as much as I love Nancy, maybe she doesn't really necessarily reflect who I am. And Robin felt a little bit closer to me. And so I don't know, I very much respected her character. And one thing I didn't like about the first season of Stranger Things is I felt like there could have been more females in it, and I feel like that I feel my grumblings were heard, because not only do we have this great relationship between Eleven and Max, and we get to see some like girl friendship, but we also get Robin, and we even get Erica. So I just felt like the season was infused with more femininity.
And also Winona Ryder's character got to be in a place of not, I mean, obviously there's still peril, but I felt like she had more agency and be able to show more range, because she's not just a grieving mother.
That's a good point. She got to, I really liked her like Sam and Diane thing with Hopper, and how we get to kind of like see her be this investigator, and she gets to like even put on like costumes and, you know, pretend to be one of the Russian commies and stuff. So I thought, yeah, that's a really good point.
So also, we're going to talk about Carrie here in a moment. Just wait. I know you're waiting. But speaking of shipping, like, I ship she and Hopper so hard. And like you were saying, people were complaining because Hopper is sort of toxic masculinity, like about, you know, how he treats Eleven. and her relationship with Mike. But I mean, it's the 80s, and yeah, he's not perfect. And I mean, I obviously don't agree with that aspect of his parenting, but you know what? It's a TV show, and maybe we do need to see how people navigate that.
Yeah, I think personally it's okay. He's not perfect. You can watch somebody and still like them, still love their character. I mean, I think when we get to the point where we're deconstructing everything down to like literally this character should do exactly how I would do it in 2019, and if they don't, then this X, Y, and Z need to happen. I just think it's getting too insane, too crazy. I love Hopper. Yes, he's flawed. I mean, that's it. And there are things, these people are letting their kids run around in a way that a lot of people wouldn't in 2019 as well. It's okay. It's a television show. And I think that we're sort of losing the balance of we're supposed to watch a TV show and be entertained by it, and maybe not assume that they should be moral compasses for us constantly. I don't know.
There you go. Now, speaking of hard eyes, a lot of people had hard eyes for Billy this season, like on screen. Maybe people do off screen too, but I don't know if you said this or if we were talking about it, but I mean, Hopper looks just as good to me as better than. Is his name Billy? That's the brother, right? The bad guy? Yeah. Like, sorry, I'd take Hopper any day over that guy.
I think it's like officially mommyhood, where it's like you just get to that age where it's like Hopper looks good to me. I mean, because I think as I have aged, I'll just talk on my own behalf. As I've aged, the things that are sexy and the things that I find like attractive are different, and Hopper to me is attractive and sexy. And even though he doesn't like fit that like mold of like maybe he shouldn't be a lifeguard like Billy and he doesn't have the figure, I'm fine with that. I think he's sexy.
I agree. Now, speaking of sexy, Cary Elwes was the mayor. And just like a lot of mayors in a lot of movies we've watched on Horror Rewind, speaking of, like Jaws, for example, the mayor's going to do what's best for the town, not necessarily, or the best for the bottom dollar and his image rather than humanity. So he wasn't a good guy. How did you feel about that?
I felt fine about it. I felt good. I like seeing him as a bad guy. I think Cary looks great. We're talking about his looks, right? I think Cary is wonderful, and that was the only time I got upset with Hopper is when he messed that beautiful face. No, I think, he definitely was that trope of the mayor, and that's fine with me. I think that he fit in well. I think that they used his talents very well, and it didn't bother me that he was one of the bad guys. He wasn't even like a main bad guy. What bothered me most is that he's probably in jail, and I'm just worried that I'm not going to see him next season.
Now, another surprise to me, because I've watched Fleabag since Stranger Things last season. I did not recognize the guy who plays Fleabag's brother-in-law. I didn't realize that he had been in Stranger Things. But then as soon as this season started, I'm like, oh my God, Murray. That's his name, Murray, right? Murray is from Fleabag. And so it made me appreciate that character more. And he's the one who told Nancy and Jonathan to knock it off and that they should be together. And he said the same thing to Hopper and what's her name? Winona Ryder's character. Anyway, he told them to knock it off too. And so I love it because he's like the biggest shipper of us all, and he's a matchmaker.
He is. I mean, obviously he was right about Jonathan and Nancy, and so he sort of could look into the crystal ball and see. So clearly he knows what needs to happen between Hopper and Joyce, which therein lies. That brings us to what happened to Hopper and what's going to happen.
I mean, I think he's alive in that cell at the end. I know some people are like, no, he's off the show, he's dead. I don't think so. They wouldn't kill Hopper. I mean, they could, but I don't think he's dead. I think he's coming back. David Harbour is a treasure. Did you see he's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe now? So everything is good. Life is good, Meg, and this show is even better.
I'll be honest. I try to be a really positive person. I've just had one of those summers where maybe things didn't go great. I've had a few like negative things happen, but like Stranger Things has just been like this light. It's just been this wonderful thing to look forward to. It was such a treat, and it just felt it's amazing because oftentimes in the summer I kind of just want to watch like, popcorn stuff. I think a lot of people feel like that. And Stranger Things manages to make you feel both. It's like this really addictive thing that you want to be in that world, but you also go on an emotional journey, and you have these characters that have so much depth, like Steve, for instance. And so I don't know, it was just like the perfect thing for the summer, and I'm just so thankful that it existed, and it had Carrie in it. So it was like all these extra things, and Hopper's fine. I thought I was going to be really worried. Like, I thought his head was going to come off or something. And then I would probably still be on here going, it's fine, you guys. It'll be okay. But, no, he's just on another, he's going to be fine. And that the whole next season, and then just imagine when he gets back, the beautiful, like, reunion he's going to have with Eleven. And then the other beautiful reunion is going to have with Joyce.
Oh, yeah. So speaking of next season potential, obviously they'll renew it. I don't know if they have officially, but Steve's going to be working at a video store. Meg, my 13-year-old self, 14-year-old self, if I went in and he was working at the video store, like, yeah, I would Steve Harrington. Yeah.
Yes. So here's the thing, he has a lot to learn. So I hope Robin and the dorky video store guy, I hope they help him. And I feel like he's going to get an education, and he's going to really get to know movies. And then he's just going to, I think we're going to ship him with somebody next season. We just don't know who yet.
I am so ready. Okay, you know who else I love this season? It was a new character, and I didn't know that I would love them so much, but it was Alexei, our Russian, who loved Woody Woodpecker and Slurpees, and I cried when he died. Like, what the heck? That's good writing.
Yeah, again, I mean, they did not have a lot of time for us to care about him. And, I mean, in most shows, he would have been very flat and very uninteresting. But sort of seeing his reaction to Joyce and Hopper, and we get to know him. And so that moment, and you could kind of feel it coming in that second before it happened, and you're like, uh-oh. And yeah, it was emotional. And another new character, I'm glad to see that Dustin's girlfriend is real.
Oh, Susie. And they sang the Neverending Story song. Like, I was obsessed with that movie. And that song, like, yes, all to the yes for that. I was going to the horror element. They did such a good job of having creepy imagery for all of this upside down business coming into our world, and the Demogorgon or whatever it is that was left over, like when it took over the rats, and then they exploded, and then the old woman eating the fertilizer, like that was all really disgusting. And then all of the people just like standing there silently, like all of that stuff was really creepy. It was good horror.
Yeah, you're right. There was really good horror. And like when and what's so fun about it, obviously, and I think I've talked about this before, is the fact that it takes place in the 80s, but you get this current visual effects and special effects and stuff. So that's really fun and cool. But yeah, when they're standing there silently and then they kind of fall into the creature to like become part of the creature, I thought that was really cool. I really liked that concept. And I thought it really did a good job of sort of showing this evil taking over Hawkins, and they took it to like another level with the Mind Flayer and the people, like, oh, when Nancy's like working and the Nancy and Jonathan are working at the news place, and the people are like sort of infected by this Mind Flayer, controlled by this Mind Flayer, and and they don't know. And so there was a lot of good horror, and so they somehow juggled all these elements. It's funny, it makes you cry, and it's scary.
Another nostalgic element that was brought in was the Terminator. Like the guy was like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator. And I don't know how old you were when that movie came out, but it was like somebody had it on VHS, and like I would go over to their house and we'd watch it all the time. And it was like a huge deal. And it was like Sarah Connor, and And then, like finding out that like the guy's dad was his best friend or whatever. I mean, there was like all that stuff. Am I spoiling the Terminator for you?
I'm like, what? Spoiler alert. No. I actually, I don't think I've ever seen the Terminator, but and Luke was saying this too, like I grew up where T2 is what you watched. So I've seen Terminator 2 many times, but I actually saw like the beginning of the original, like, I don't know, several weeks or months ago. And I couldn't believe like how bad the visual effects are. Like you just forget. But I'm sure it's a really good movie. I just was like, whoa.
Yeah, and like everything we've learned on Horror Rewind watching these old movies, it's not even about good or bad. It's about the nostalgia sometimes. And so like that whole thing was like, oh my gosh, I'm remembering all of these things that I haven't thought about in decades. And the other thing that was brought up, and Mark didn't remember this either, was when New Coke came out. It was a big deal. And now the rumor is it came out because then when they came out with the original taste of Coke, it was just that they had taken the cocaine out now. But, hoped that nobody would remember what it actually tastes like. But my grandparents, they were hoarders and they had the original Coke and it did taste better.
I'll have to take your word for it. I don't know if I ever had New Coke versus Old Coke, so I'll take your word. This is completely different than Crystal Pepsi, right?
Yes, that's definitely later. So I love that. And Coke had New Coke for sale, so we bought a case. And we taste tested it last night, and it's definitely too sweet. I mean, but I'm also a Coke Zero drinker now, so who knows?
The jury is out.
What else do you want to say about Stranger Things Season 3?
I mean, I am guessing anybody who's listened this far agrees with what we're saying. That's amazing. And I just can't wait for season 4. I know I'm going to have to wait a long time. It felt like we had to wait a long time for season 3. I'm just holding my little Steve plushie, and I'm just so happy that there are people who share in sort of that nostalgia of that time. Horror Rewind is really based on nostalgia. And like I said, it's such a difficult emotion to sort of evoke, but they did such a great job, and it just makes me feel like I want to watch 80s horror movies until my eyes pop out.
David Harbour was on a local Minnesota radio show, and he said when they were filming the first season, he said that he and some people in scenes would turn to each other and say, who is going to watch this? Nobody's going to watch this. Is anybody ever going to see this show? Like, yeah, it might show on Netflix, but no one's ever going to watch it. And to see that this show has been embraced across generations and just people of all types, and I think that's amazing because I know it's more than horror. I mean, maybe it's not considered horror at all, but everybody watches Stranger Things.
I know, and it's so funny because it is horror, but I'm sure a lot of people who watch Stranger Things would be like, oh, I don't like horror. So it's funny because it's sort of like a mainstream horror, but at the same time, I mean, there's some nasty, good, gory horror things in here. So I'm glad, horror's going to the masses. I'll take it.
Yay! Okay, let's rank Stranger Things Season 3 on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you hated it, 10 being you think it's a perfect season of television. What's our scale? It's got to be something with Steve and Scoops Ahoy. Scoops Ahoy ice cream that Steve is putting into our banana split or whatever. And that's a euphemism for sure. How many scoops?
I give it 10 scoops, and I'm saying this like very lasciviously, looking at this cute little plushie. He looks so adorable. I feel guilty. Yes, I give it 10 because it's like one of the highlights of my summer.
Absolutely 10 out of 10. I think it is a perfect season of television. I could not be happier with this season, and I was ready. I was excited. My expectations were high, and it lived up to them. Maybe even surpassed them because it gave me more joy than I anticipated. So Meg, it is the middle of July, almost the end of July. Actually, it's the end of July. What am I talking about? And I want to know if you've seen or read or streamed anything in the world of horror lately. The first thing I'm going to tell you is I went and saw Crawl last weekend, and it was amazing. You need to crawl to the theater to see it because it was so much fun. It's absolutely a popcorn movie, and I mean that in the highest praise because it was so good. It was so good.
Ooh, too. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Like I said, when I saw the trailer, I thought it looked good. So now I'm intrigued. I'm excited. Yay.
It was a lot of fun. It's a creature feature. I know some people don't like creature features or water-based horror, but you know what? I love both of those things. And first of all, it's scary enough to be stuck in a hurricane. They add on the element that and this isn't spoiler, they add in the element that her dad is injured and she needs to try to get him out of this hurricane. I mean, imagine. Third element, oh, by the way, there's giant alligators out there. And like this week in the news, there was a news story released that people are flushing their meth and creating meth alligators, and alligators really are attacking people because they're high on meth. So the horror is real.
What else could go wrong?
So go see Crawl if you haven't.
Are any of those alligators on meth?
Maybe, but I mean, it's crazy. It's so good. It's so good. So I highly recommend it.
I started Handmaid's Tale, if that counts, and I was like doing that thing where, well, like I was just saying, like I kind of want popcorn things right now, and so I was really avoiding it because it's so heavy. But then as soon as you start it, you're like, oh wait, this is amazing. So why did I wait? So I'm only 2 episodes in of it, but it's so amazing. Why was I like trying to run away from it? I don't know.
Well, I know. And sometimes too, it's like, I put myself in the frame of mind like, oh no, I need to be in the mood to watch this. But are you ever really in the mood to watch something? Maybe not. And so sometimes just diving in is the best policy. And yeah, I am not caught up with Handmaids, but it's so good. It's so good.
It's so good. And I want to say Nosferatu I like, but it's not blowing my mind.
I know. I really got drawn in that first episode, but then I haven't been compelled to keep up with it. And now I have a few episodes banked because I don't know if it just started moving more slowly or what's happening. So I think I am going to read the book before I finish the series.
Yeah, please read the book. It's so good. And what I liked about the book was that we see her as a young person, but then we see her in her mid-30s with kids. And I think that was probably what resonated with me the most, because obviously that's my life. And so I don't really think we're ever going to get there. I don't know. I'm not getting the sense that certainly not this season, that's going to be happening. It's probably not as simple as that. I don't think that's what's missing for me. There's just something sometimes when a book, and this is a difficult book to adapt, I would think. And I think they did a good job, but some of the writing and dialogue and stuff, it does feel a little slow. And like my first sign is when I start getting on my phone. And if I'm getting on my phone during Nosferatu, like there's a problem because I love that book so much. So I'm having a hard time really putting my finger on what the issue is. But yeah, maybe it's slow moving. I don't know.
And the other thing, I mean, after I read it, I think I'll binge it. Sometimes it's easier for me to just watch a show all in a row. Instead of week to week is hard sometimes too, because it's like, wait, what happened last week? And then I'm not invested because I can't remember, or other things are happening, which is hard. Now, Comic-Con was this past weekend, and the new Doctor Strange movie was announced, and they're calling it a horror movie. Like, what? I mean, there's horror elements. I don't know. I mean, Bloody Disgusting, and everybody picked up and ran the story that it's going to be a horror movie. What do you think?
Well, I like the title. What is the title again?
Multiverse of Madness or something?
Yeah, so I like that. I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to like sort of be quirky and wacky. I don't know if they're saying, hey, look, us and Get Out, and there's all this like popular mainstream, so to speak, horror happening, and we want to get on that. I mean, it's not like Marvel is like in need to convince anybody to go see their movie. So I don't know. I feel like it's a creative choice, probably less of a marketing choice and more of just like they made a creative choice, and I'm excited. I don't know. Marvel has done a very good job of making movies that are enjoyable and that I enjoy watching. So I'm gonna, I don't know, see.
I'm gonna see the crap out of that movie regardless, whether it's horror or not, because I have Benedict Cumberbatch tattooed on my body. So it's just his silhouette as Sherlock, but you know, he's on my body. Oh, and so is Martin Freeman. What?
Maybe I need Carrie somewhere.
As You Wish?
Yeah, maybe As You Wish. Wow. You guys heard it here first.
I mean, can you imagine if Carrie said that to you with that look?
It's all I imagine.
I guess I'm preaching to the choir here. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so it's been a good week. And next week, we're going to bring it back old school with, it's not too old school. It's a newer movie. We're going to talk about Shaun of the Dead next week, but it's one of our favorites. So listen, Rewinders, tell us what you're watching. We always want to hear. Follow us on our social media. Check out and pre-order our book coming out, The Science of Monsters. It's coming out in October. It's going to come up so fast. And then also keep an eye out for The Science of Women in Horror, which is coming out in February, which is Women in Horror Month. Meg, is there anything you want to plug or talk about?
Just that we're going to be doing events for Science of Monsters, and if you want us to come to your city, let us know.
We cannot wait to meet you and see you and sign books and talk all things horror. So until next time, I don't know if you can hear this, but there has been a chainsaw the entire time in the background, and it is not Leatherface, or is it? It's Meg's husband.
It's my husband, probably with a beer in one hand and chainsaw in the other, working on all our trees that got knocked down from all the storms of the tornado. Look, it's like rustling. Yeah. What if we looked over there and it was Leatherface and like Luke was dead over there? That would be pretty, I was going to say cool, but maybe that's not the word.
You know, the last time we recorded an episode in this room, we recorded Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and now there really is a chainsaw in the background. So I don't know what it means, Meg, but it means something.
Oh my God, this might be the final recording. This is going to be the found footage movie is going to start with this recording.
The found audio podcast or something. Oh, anyway, until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.